Sometimes, the most unbelievable stories begin in the quietest places. 8-year-old Lily lived on a peaceful farm miles from the nearest town. No noise, no traffic, no visitors. But one morning, everything changed. When she heard strange noises coming from the old barn, she walked into the old wooden barn. What she found froze her in place, for abandoned police dogs staring at her as if begging for help. No collars, no handler, no explanation. And one of them, the one with a scar over his eye, kept inching forward, as if he recognized her. No one could have imagined what would happen next. Who abandoned the police dogs on her family farm? Why were they watching her like she was the only person they trusted? Stay with us. This story will leave you speechless. Before we start, make sure to hit like and subscribe. And really, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. Morning sunlight spilled gently over the rolling fields of the Harper family farm, painting everything in soft gold. 8-year-old Lily Harper loved this time of day. The world was quiet, the animals were waking up, and the air smelled like warm hay and dew-covered earth. She slipped on her blue dress, tied her messy ponytail, and skipped down the creaking wooden steps of the farmhouse with the carefree energy only a child could have. Every morning, Lily fed the chickens first, then the goats, and finally she checked the old barn, her favorite place on the entire farm. But today, the animals behaved differently. The chickens weren't clucking. The goats weren't bleating. Even the dogs from the neighboring farm weren't barking. Everything felt still. Too still. Lily paused, her small brows knitting together. "Why is it so quiet?" she whispered to herself. She walked across the familiar dirt path toward the barn, her boots crunching softly. A faint breeze brushed past her, carrying with it a strange scent, earth, wood, and something unfamiliar. Something alert. When she reached the barn, she stopped. The heavy wooden door, which her father always made sure to close at night, was slightly open, just a crack, but wide enough to be wrong. Lily's heartbeat quickened. She looked around, expecting to see her father working early, but the farmyard was empty. Curiosity tugged at her stronger than fear. She gently pushed the barn door wider. It groaned loudly, echoing in the morning stillness. Sunlight streamed into the dusty barn, illuminating floating particles that danced in the beams like tiny glowing insects. That's when she noticed the footprints. Not human, not her father's. Large paw prints, deep, deliberate, trailing across the barn's dirt floor. Lily crouched down, her fingers hovering just above the impressions. They were fresh. Her breath caught in her throat. Her family didn't own a dog. She slowly rose to her feet and took a cautious step inside. The barn felt different today, heavier, as if the air itself was holding its breath. The horses in the nearby stalls shifted nervously, their ears twitching at sounds Lily couldn't hear. Something or someone was inside. Lily's small hand pressed against her chest as she steadied her breathing. She wasn't scared exactly, but she wasn't calm either. Something was waiting for her behind the shadows of the barn. And as she moved deeper inside, she felt it watching her. Watching and waiting. Lily took another hesitant step forward, her eyes adjusting to the barn's dim light. The air felt thick, almost humming with a presence she couldn't explain. She swallowed hard and brushed a strand of hair behind her ear as she peered deeper into the shadows. Then she saw them. 4 German shepherds sat in a perfect straight line near the back wall of the barn, silent, alert, and absolutely still. Their posture was rigid, their expressions unreadable. They looked like statues carved from muscle and discipline. But their eyes were sharp and intelligent, fixed directly on her. Lily froze. For a long moment, no one moved, not the dogs, not Lily, not even the dust motes dancing in the sunlight. It was as if time itself held its breath. The dogs weren't growling. They weren't barking. They weren't showing teeth. They were waiting. In the filtered sunlight, Lily noticed something else. Each dog wore a thick, worn collar. Hanging from each collar was a metal tag. She squinted and stepped slightly closer. The tags gleamed faintly. K9-17. K9-22, K9-08, and the one in the center, K9-01. Lily's breath hitched. She had only ever seen tags like that on police dogs and movies. What are you doing here?" she whispered, her voice trembling but soft. None of the dogs reacted aggressively. Instead, the dog with a K9-01 tag tilted its head, studying her with an expression that felt almost human. Curious, cautious, protective. Its ears twitched forward, and its tail gave the smallest, most subtle movement, not wagging, but acknowledging her. Lily subconsciously took another step closer. The barn floor creaked beneath her feet. That was when she noticed something even stranger. The dogs weren't chained. They weren't hurt. They weren't lost or wandering. They had positioned themselves deliberately, as if following a command. Who commanded them? And why inside her barn? The warm beam of morning sunlight caught their fur, revealing something else: scratches, patches of dirt, and signs of exhaustion. These dogs had traveled far. Lily could see it in their bodies, in their steady but tired breathing. Her fear slowly shifted into concern. "You look hungry," she murmured, her small voice carrying gentle warmth. The dog with the canine-01 tag lowered its head slightly. Not in submission, more like gratitude. Lily's heartbeat softened. She lifted her hand carefully, not touching, just offering. To her shock, not one of the dogs growled. Instead, canine-01 stood up slowly, muscles coiling and relaxing with a quiet grace. It stepped forward, only one step, then stopped, watching her with protective intensity. It had chosen her. Lily felt it instantly, like the air between them had shifted. She wasn't just looking at abandoned dogs. She was standing before 4 trained police, K9s, who had come to her farm for a reason. And whatever that reason was, it was only the beginning. Lily's breath quivered as she stood in front of the 4 dogs. Her small fingers curled nervously at her sides. The barn felt strangely sacred now, quiet, warm, and filled with a tension she didn't fully understand. Sunlight spilled in through the cracks in the wood, creating bright stripes across the dirt floor, illuminating the dogs like a spotlight. The dog with the canine-01 tag slowly rose to its feet. Its movement was silent, controlled, almost graceful. The other 3 dogs stayed seated, their eyes following Lily carefully. But it was canine-01 who took the lead. It stepped forward, not aggressively, not cautiously, but with a calm certainty, as if it had already chosen its purpose. Lily swallowed, her heart thumping like a drum in her chest. "It's okay," she whispered. "I won't hurt you." Her voice trembled, but it carried something pure: trust. Canine-01 paused only a few steps from her, its ears flicking forward, reading her every breath, every blink. Its deep brown eyes held a softness she didn't expect, a warmth that made her shoulders ease a little. Somehow, she sensed it was asking her for permission, to come closer, to trust her. She slowly extended her hand, not touching, just offering. The dog lowered his head, sniffing the air around her fingers, its breath warm and steady. Lily felt her fear dissolve like dust in sunlight. This dog wasn't dangerous. It wasn't wild. It wasn't lost. It was searching. For safety. For answers. For someone who wouldn't turn it away. And somehow, unbelievably, it had chosen her. Lily's eyes softened. "You're beautiful," she whispered. The dog's tail moved slightly, again not a wag, but something intentional, a small gesture of connection. Behind it, the other dogs remained perfectly still, watching the moment unfold as if they understood its importance. Then something strange happened. Canine-01 gently nudged Lily's hand up with his muzzle, guiding her until her palm rested lightly against its head. Lily gasped softly at the contact. Its fur was warm, coarse, and comforting in a way she didn't expect. The dog closed its eyes for a brief moment, as though savoring the touch it had been missing. "You're not scary at all," she murmured. The dog opened its eyes again, and for a split second, Lily felt something pass between them, an unspoken message, a plea, a warning. She didn't know the meaning yet, but she felt the weight of it. These dogs hadn't appeared in her barn by accident. They had come with a purpose. And Canine-01 had just chosen her to lead the way. Lily stood frozen for a moment, her hand still resting on Canine-01's head. The dog's steady warmth filled her with a strange comfort, but also a growing sense of responsibility. She knew she couldn't keep this secret, not from her father. He needed to know. Even if she didn't fully understand what was happening, it felt too big, too important to hide. I'll be right back," she whispered gently. K9-01 lifted its head, watching her with an intensity that made her pause. The dog didn't move to stop her, but its eyes followed her every step as she backed away and slipped out of the barn. Lily ran across the farmyard, her heart pounding. She found her father, Daniel Harper, near the tool shed, repairing a broken fence post. His dusty hat was pulled low, shielding his eyes from the sun. He looked up at her sudden approach. Daddy, you have to come to the barn right now." Daniel set down his hammer, frowning. "Slow down, Lily. What's wrong? Did a goat get loose again?" "No," she cried, grabbing his hand. "There are dogs, big ones. 4 of them. In the barn. Daniel stiffened. It was subtle, almost invisible, his shoulders tensing, his jaw clenching, but Lily felt the shift. His eyes darkened, not with fear, but something else. Something heavy. Dogs, he repeated slowly. Yes. And they're wearing collars with numbers, like police dogs. Lily's voice was breathless. They're not mean. They're just waiting. Daniel wiped his palms on his jeans, his expression unreadable. Show me, he said quietly. Lily tugged him toward the barn. But as they grew closer, Daniel's steps slowed. His eyes scanned the ground, noticing the deep paw prints leading inside. He knelt down, touching the dirt. Fresh prints. Trained dogs. Police canine formations. His heart dropped. He stood up and walked into the barn, Lily right behind him. The moment he entered, the dogs lifted their heads simultaneously. Their formation tightened. The air grew heavier. Daniel froze. K9-01 stood in front, ears forward, body tense, not in aggression, but in recognition. Lily beamed, expecting her father to be amazed. See? They're so good. They didn't scare me at all. Lily. Daniel's voice cracked sharply, making her flinch. You need to step back. Now. She blinked, confused. But they're nice. I said step back. The barn echoed with his shout. Even the dogs shifted uneasily. Lily's heart squeezed. Her father never yelled. Daniel rubbed a trembling hand over his face. These dogs, they shouldn't be here, he murmured, almost to himself. Not again. Not after all these years. Lily stared at him. Daddy, do you know them? Daniel didn't answer. But his silence was louder than anything he could have said. Daniel stepped farther into the barn, his boots crunching softly against the dirt floor. The 4 German shepherds watched his every move with unwavering focus, their bodies still, their ears twitching with alertness. Lily stayed close to the entrance, uncertain and hurt by her father's sudden change in tone. Daddy, why are you acting like this? She whispered. Daniel didn't answer. His eyes were fixed on K9-01, the leader, the one now standing protectively in front of the others. A familiar, haunted expression flickered across Daniel's face, something Lily had never seen before. It wasn't fear. It was memory. He took a cautious step forward, testing their reaction. Instantly, K9-01 lowered its stance, not threatening, but firm, refusing to let him come closer. The other 3 dogs mirrored the motion, forming a silent wall of disciplined defiance. Lily gasped. Daddy, they don't want you to come near them. Daniel raised a hand gently. It's okay, Lily. I'm not going closer. He exhaled shakily. They're not here to hurt us. Then why won't they leave? Lily asked. Daniel swallowed hard. Because someone trained them to hold their ground. Someone gave them a command, and they won't break it until they believe the threat is gone. Threat. Lily repeated softly. What threat? The dog's eyes shifted around the barn, scanning shadowed corners, listening to sounds Lily couldn't hear. Their tails remained stiff, their muscles subtly tensed with every gust of wind hitting the barn door. They were guarding something, or guarding someone. K9-01 turned its head toward Lily again, its expression softening. It took 2 steps toward her, then sat down, directly between her and Daniel. Daniel's breath caught. They're protecting you. Me? Why? He hesitated. I don't know, but that wasn't true. His eyes said he knew something he wasn't ready to tell. Daniel tried coaxing them. He whistled softly, clicked his tongue, even extended an open palm. None of the dogs budged. They stayed exactly where they were, positioning themselves around Lily with military precision. It's like they're guarding the barn, Lily murmured. No, Daniel whispered. They're guarding you. They chose this place for a reason. Then, as if to prove the point, one of the dogs, K9-22, rose and walked to the barn door. It nudged it shut with its nose, sealing them in. Lily's eyes widened. They locked us in? Daniel shook his head slowly. No, they're keeping something out. The barn fell silent again, cold, tense, electric. And Lily realized the dogs weren't staying because they were lost. They were staying because danger was closer than anyone knew. The barn felt heavier now, its silence no longer peaceful, but charged with a strange tension Lily could almost taste in the air. The 4 dogs stood firmly around her, their eyes sharp, ears twitching at every sound outside the wooden walls. Daniel paced near the entrance, running a trembling hand through his hair. Daddy, Lily said softly, are the dogs in danger? Daniel hesitated. I'm not sure. But K9-01 seemed certain. It walked past Daniel without flinching, nudged Lily's arm gently, then moved deeper into the barn. It paused, looked back at her, and let out a quiet, deliberate huff, as if asking her to follow. Lily didn't even think. She stepped after the dog. "Lily, wait," Daniel began, but she was already crossing the barn. K9-01 led her to an old stack of hay bales piled in the corner, hay that her father rarely touched anymore. Dust coated the surface, and cobwebs clung to the wooden support beams above. The dog pawed at the hay twice, then stepped back, eyes fixed on her with unmistakable intent. "You want me to move this?" Lily whispered. The dog lowered its head, confirming. Lily pulled away the top layers of hay. Dust flew into the air, and she coughed, wiping her sleeve across her nose. She moved another layer, then another. "Careful, Lily," Daniel warned, walking closer. "I am," she replied, though her heart beat faster. Then her fingers brushed something cold. Metal. Her breath caught. She pushed the last clump of hay aside and uncovered a black, heavy object partially buried in the dirt. It looked like a walkie-talkie, but bigger, sturdier, official. Daniel's eyes widened. "Oh no." Lily lifted it carefully. "What is it?" Daniel exhaled shakily. "A police radio." He crouched beside her, examining the scratched surface. "This isn't civilian equipment. This is used by canine units." Before Lily could process that, the radio crackled to life. "Unit Bravo, do you copy? Missing K9 squad, still unaccounted for. Last signal pinged, rural farmland outside county lines." Daniel froze. Lily's eyes widened. Another voice broke through, urgent, tense. "Proceed with caution. For K9S classified as abandoned during operation. Suspected foul play. Repeat, foul play." K9-01 stiffened, ears sharp. Lily clutched the radio tighter. "Daddy, they're looking for the dogs." Daniel swallowed hard. "No, they're not looking for them. They're tracking them. Someone abandoned these dogs on purpose." "Why would anyone abandon police dogs?" Lily whispered, voice trembling. Daniel didn't answer at first. His jaw clenched. His eyes hardened. "Because someone didn't want them to be found." Lily's heart pounded. She looked at K9-01, who stared back with an expression she didn't know dogs could make. An expression that seemed to say, "We came here for a reason." Outside, a distant rumble of thunder warned of a storm approaching. But the real storm was already inside the barn. Thunder rolled across the sky like a warning drumbeat, deep and distant at first. Lily looked toward the barn doors, where a thin beam of sunlight had just begun to fade beneath gathering clouds. The air shifted, cooler, heavier, like nature itself was holding its breath. Daniel stepped to the doorway and peered outside. His shoulders tightened. "Storm's coming fast," he said quietly. As if responding to his words, the wind swept through the farm, rattling loose boards and sending dried leaves skittering across the yard. In seconds, the peaceful morning sky darkened into a swirling mass of gray. Then the first crack of lightning split the horizon. The dogs reacted instantly. K9-01 stepped forward, positioning itself directly in front of Lily. K9-22 and K9-08 flanked her sides, while K9-17 moved to block the back of the barn. It wasn't random. It wasn't fear. It was formation. Protection. Daniel frowned. "Why are they doing that?" Lily swallowed. "They're scared of the storm?" But as she looked closer, she knew that wasn't true. Their bodies were tense, their ears sharpened, not toward the thunder, but toward something unseen, something approaching. The wind intensified, slamming the barn doors shut with a forceful bang. Lily jumped, and K9-01 immediately pressed closer to her, its warm body steadying her trembling hands. Rain began to fall, first in soft taps, then in violent sheets that hammered the barn roof. Water streamed down the windows, blurring the world outside into a gray, trembling haze. Daniel grabbed a lantern and lit it, the warm glow fighting against the creeping darkness. "We need to wait this out," he muttered. "Storm like this, it's dangerous." But K9-22 growled low, staring at the door. Not at the storm. At something beyond it. Lily tightened her grip on the police radio. Her heart beat faster. "Daddy, I don't think the storm is what they're worried about." Lightning flashed again, so bright it lit up the entire barn. For a split second, Lily saw the dog's eyes reflecting the flash, focused, intense. They weren't afraid of natural danger. They sensed a different kind of threat, one invisible to her and Daniel, but unmistakable to them. The barn trembled with thunder, rain, and growing fear. And Lily realized the storm outside was nothing compared to the one heading toward them. The storm raged harder, pounding the barn roof like 1,000 fists. Thunder boomed, shaking the wooden beams. Lily clutched the police radio against her chest while the dogs held their formation around her, still, alert, listening to something she couldn't hear. Then K9-08 suddenly broke formation. It turned its head sharply, ears perked toward the far corner of the barn, the darkest part, cluttered with old crates, unused tools, and decades of dust. The dog let out a short, urgent bark. K9-01 echoed it with a low, rumbling growl meant not as a warning, but as a signal. Lily's breath quickened. "Daddy, what are they doing now?" Daniel followed the dog's gaze. "I don't know," he muttered, but his voice lacked certainty. "Stay close." K9-08 moved to the corner, pawing at the floorboards. Hay scattered. Dust rose in a cloud around its paws. The dog looked back at Lily, eyes sharp and insistent. It wanted her, not Daniel. Her. Lily took hesitant steps toward the corner. K9-01 walked beside her, nudging her forward gently, protectively, as though guiding her towards something important, something meant for her alone. Daniel's voice cracked behind her. "Lily, wait." But she kept going. When she reached the corner, she saw what K9-08 had uncovered, a faint outline of a wooden square in the floor. A hatch. A door hidden beneath layers of hay and dirt. Lily knelt down, brushing the surface clean with her hands. "Daddy, what is this?" Daniel froze. His face drained of color. He knew. "Lily, step away from that," he said sharply. "But the dogs want me to." "I said step away." His voice thundered louder than the storm. But the dogs disagreed. K9-01 moved between Lily and Daniel again, blocking him with a steady, immovable stance. K9-17 and K9-22 mirrored the behavior, forming a barrier that Daniel couldn't cross. "Daniel Harper," Lily whispered, for the first time using his full name the way adults did when they sensed something was wrong. "Why don't you want me to open it?" Daniel's breath shook. He ran a hand down his face, torn between fear and guilt. "I boarded that hatch shut years ago," he said finally. "No one was supposed to find it." "Why?" Lily whispered. Before he could answer, lightning cracked outside, and at that exact moment, the police radio crackled again. Evidence hidden: former K9 handler, location compromised. Lily's eyes widened. Daniel's past, the dog's presence, the hidden hatch. Everything suddenly felt connected. K9-08 nudged Lily's hand toward the hatch handle. A rusted metal ring bolted into the wood. She hesitated only a moment before gripping it with both hands. The dog stepped back, forming a protective circle. The wood creaked loudly as she pulled. Dust fell. Air whistled upward. And slowly, the hidden hatch lifted open. A cold breath of underground air swept through the barn. And Lily realized the dogs hadn't come to the farm by accident. They had come to reveal the secret buried beneath her feet. A cold rush of air rose from the open hatch, carrying a scent Lily couldn't place. Earth, metal, and something older, forgotten. The lantern light flickered over the wooden opening, casting long shadows across the barn as thunder boomed overhead. Lily felt K9-01 lean gently against her leg, steadying her as she peered into the darkness below. "Daddy," she whispered, "what's down there?" Daniel stood frozen several feet away, his hands trembling, his eyes fixed on the open hatch as if it were a wound he'd spent years trying to cover. Rain roared against the barn roof, but Lily could hear his shaky breath. "You were never supposed to find this," he said softly, voice cracking under the weight of old memories. "Not you. Not anyone." The dogs stayed rigid, their formation unbroken, watching him, waiting. Lily turned to him, eyes wide. "Daddy, do you know these dogs?" Daniel shut his eyes, as though the question pierced something deep inside him. When he finally spoke, his voice sounded far older than he was. "Yes," he whispered. "I trained them." Lily gasped. You were a canine officer?" Daniel nodded slowly, his gaze drifting to the dogs with something between sorrow and pride. "A long time ago." Lightning flashed, and the lantern's glow struck the metal tags on the dogs' collars. The numbers K9-01, K9-17, K9-22, K9-08 seemed to shine brighter in that moment, as if confirming his words. Lily stepped toward him, her voice trembling. "Why didn't you tell me?" Daniel exhaled, the truth pouring out of him like a dam finally cracking. "I wasn't just a handler, Lily. I trained an elite K9 unit. These dogs. The best team on the force. They were loyal, fearless, and they uncovered things certain people didn't want found." The dogs exchanged glances, subtle, but full of understanding. "What things?" Lily whispered. Daniel looked toward the hatch. Evidence. Documents. Proof of corruption buried deep within the department. We stumbled onto something massive. Someone powerful, someone dangerous. The radio crackled again, as if answering him. Canine units, last seen with former handler. Classified high-level corruption, unresolved case. Lily's heart thudded painfully. You mean the bad people hurt the dogs? Daniel shook his head with a broken sigh. They tried. When I refused to back down from the investigation, they came after me. I had to run. I boarded up this hatch, hit everything inside it, and quit the force. They destroyed my reputation, said I abandoned my canine team. He looked at the dogs, truly seeing them for the first time in years. But they didn't abandon me. The dogs stepped closer, their tails low, their expressions softening with a mix of loyalty and pain. K9-01 approached Daniel slowly, lifting its head as if reminding him of the bond they once shared. Tears filled Daniel's eyes. I thought you were gone, he whispered, voice breaking. K9-01 pressed its head firmly into Daniel's hand, an answer years overdue. Lily felt her chest tighten. They came back for you, she breathed. Daniel shook his head gently. No, Lily. They came back because the danger isn't over. His eyes drifted to the open hatch. And whatever we hid down there, someone is still trying to find it. Night fell like a heavy curtain, swallowing the last traces of daylight. The storm finally began to pass, but the farm was left drenched, muddy, and trembling under the weight of tension. The lantern flickered weakly in the barn, casting ghost-like shadows over the walls and across the dogs' vigilant faces. Daniel paced near the open hatch, listening, waiting, for something he hoped wouldn't come. But K9-01 already sensed it. Its ears shot up. A low growl vibrated through its chest. K9-17 and K9-22 stiffened, turning their heads toward the barn doors. K9-08 stepped protectively in front of Lily again, its muscles coiled tight. Lily felt her throat go dry. Daddy, they're scared. No, Daniel whispered, staring out into the dark barnyard. They're preparing. Then came the sound that made Daniel's blood run cold. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Gravel. Heavy wheels rolling over it. Headlights cut through the darkness like knives. Two black SUVs creeping up the long dirt driveway, moving slow, deliberate, predatory. Daniel's face drained of color. It's them, he breathed. They found us. Lily clutched his arm, trembling. Who are they? People who want the dogs. People who want what's in that hatch. His eyes hardened. People who will stop at nothing. The barn lights flickered again as the SUV engines cut off. Doors opened. 1, 2, 3, 4, and dark silhouettes stepped out, their flashlights slicing through the night as they approached the barn with calculated precision. K9-01 let out a deep warning bark that shook Lily's bones. The other dogs formed around her instantly, creating a living shield of muscle and fur. Stay behind them, Daniel whispered urgently. No matter what. Boots squelched in the mud. Voices murmured low. Then, bang. A heavy fist slammed against the barn doors. Daniel Harper, a voice called out, smooth, confident, dripping with authority. Long time no see. Daniel flinched. I know you're in there, the voice continued. And I know you've got something that belongs to us. K9-22 snarled, baring its teeth. Flashlights shone through the cracks in the barn walls, sweeping across the interior like searching eyes. Open the door, Daniel, the voice commanded. Let's have a little conversation. Lily clutched the back of K9-08's fur. Daddy, don't let them in. Daniel steadied himself, placing a hand on K9-01's back. I won't. Another bang, louder this time, rattled the wooden doors. I'm giving you one chance, the man outside said coldly. Hand over the dogs. And the evidence. Now. Daniel stepped protectively in front of Lily. They're not getting anything. The barn fell silent, breathless, electric. Outside, someone gave a quiet order. Break it down. K9-01 growled, a sound filled with both fury and promise. Lily held her breath. The real fight was about to begin. The barn doors shuddered under the weight of the men outside. Every slam echoed through the wooden beams, making dust fall from the rafters. Lily clung to the dogs, her small body trembling, while Daniel positioned himself between her and the advancing threat. K9-01 stepped forward, standing firmly in front of Lily, its stance rigid, protective, unbreakable. The other dogs flanked her closely. Even in the chaos, Lily could feel something strange in the air. A silent understanding. A message. She sank to her knees, wrapping her arms around K9-01's neck. "Why me?" she whispered, tears forming. "Why did you come to me?" K9-01 gently nudged her cheek, not out of panic, but with a soft, deliberate tenderness. An answer in its own way. Then, with unusual intention, it stepped back and picked something up from beneath its collar. A small, folded piece of paper wrapped in plastic. Lily blinked. Is that for me?" The dog placed it gently into her hands. Daniel's breath caught. "It can't be." With shaking fingers, Lily unfolded the paper. Her eyes widened. It wasn't just any photograph. It was her. A much younger version of her, maybe 2 or 3 years old, sitting in the grass, laughing, with all 4 of these dogs surrounding her, their bodies relaxed, their eyes soft, their faces familiar. Lily's heart stopped. "This is me," she whispered. "But I don't remember this." Daniel sank to his knees beside her, guilt and grief swirling in his eyes. "Lily, before everything went wrong, before I was forced to run, these dogs weren't just my team." His voice cracked. "They were your protectors too." Lily stared at him, stunned. "Mine. You grew up around them. They watched you take your first steps. They guarded you when you played outside. You loved them, and they loved you." He swallowed. "When the corruption surged through the department, I hid you. I hid the truth. And I sent the dogs away, hoping they'd survive." K9-01 pressed its head against Lily's shoulder, as if confirming every word. The barn door buckled violently. It wouldn't hold much longer. Lily hugged the dog tightly, realizing the truth. They didn't choose her by accident. They came back because she was part of their family. The only innocent link left in a corrupted chain. And tonight, they would protect her again. The barn doors trembled under another furious blow. Wood splintered, scattering chips across the floor. Lily flinched and clutched K9-01 tighter as the lantern flickered wildly, casting frantic shadows across the walls. Daniel stepped forward, jaw clenched, eyes burning with determination. "Lily, stay behind the dogs. No matter what happens." K9-01 growled, a deep, thunderous warning that vibrated through the floorboards. The other dogs fanned out in perfect formation. K9-01 at the center, K9-17, and K9-22 flanking, K9-08 guarding Lily's back. They were ready. This barn wasn't just a shelter now, it was a battleground. A final, echoing crack split the air as the barn doors burst inward. 4 men stepped inside, faces hidden, flashlights trembling through swirling dust. Their boots thudded across the floor in confident, predatory strides. Rain blew in behind them, soaking the barn entrance. Thunder growled overhead like a beast ready to strike. The leader stepped forward, his silhouette tall and ominous. Well, he drawled. "Daniel Harper, still hiding behind mutts and lies." Daniel stiffened. "You're trespassing. Leave now. Not without what we came for." The man's flashlight beam cut across the barn until it landed on Lily, and the dogs shielding her. He smiled. A cruel, cold smile. "So, the girl still exists. And the dogs still remember her." Touching. Lily pressed closer to K9-01. "Daddy, who are they?" Before Daniel could answer, the man raised his hand. "Take the evidence. And take the dogs alive if possible." The other men stepped forward. But the dogs moved first. K9-22 lunged with a bark so fierce it shook Lily's bones. It didn't attack, but blocked the path, snapping defensively. K9-17 circled the opposite side, cutting off an attacker's angle. K9-08 kept Lily behind its body, nudging her toward the center with protective precision. The men hesitated. "These dogs are trained," one muttered. "This is a bad idea." "They're outdated," the leader snapped. "Take them down." He stepped forward, and K9-01 exploded into motion. Not to bite, not to attack, but to send a message. It leapt forward, stopping inches from the man with a roar that forced him back a full step. Its teeth flashed in the lantern light. Its stance was unmistakable. "You will not touch her." "Stand down," the leader barked, raising a weapon. Daniel's heart stopped. No. The dogs braced, ready to defend with their lives. But Lily did something no one expected. She stepped out from behind them. K9-01 panicked, nudging her back, but she shook her head and faced the men, her small frame shaking, but her voice steady. "Stop," she cried. "You're not taking them. You're not hurting them." Her bravery stunned even the intruders. Daniel grabbed her shoulder. "Lily, what are you doing?" "They came here for us," she said, eyes glistening. "For you. For me. They're not alone anymore." The leader sneered. You think a child can stop us? Lily lifted the photograph. Her as a toddler, surrounded by the same dogs. They've protected me my whole life. And I'll protect them now. The barn fell silent. The men's flashlights wavered. K9-01 pressed against Lily's side, standing as tall as it could, declaring, without words, that she spoke for all of them. Then, from outside, a distant sound cut through the storm. Sirens. The men froze. Daniel's eyes widened. You weren't the only ones tracking these dogs. He stepped forward, voice hardening like steel. And this time, you're not silencing anything. The leader cursed under his breath. Retreat. Now. The men backed away quickly, disappearing into the stormy night as the wail of approaching patrol cars grew louder. Lily sagged with relief, burying her face into K9-01's neck. But even as the barn filled with flashing blue lights, Daniel whispered, "It's not over yet." Because the real secret, the evidence, still waited in the darkness beneath the hatch. And the danger was far from gone. Blue and red lights flashed through the cracks of the barn walls, casting streaks of color across the dirt floor. Officers shouted orders outside as they secured the perimeter, but inside the barn it was strangely calm. Tense, yes, but calm in a way that felt like the eye of a storm. Lily wiped her tears, still pressed against K9-01's warm fur. The dog nudged her gently, guiding her attention back toward the open hatch. As if saying, "We're not done yet." K9-08 trotted to the edge of the hatch and barked softly, looking back at Lily with pointed urgency. K9-17 and K9-22 joined it, forming a half circle around the dark opening. Daniel stepped beside her, his face pale but determined. "They want us to go down," he said quietly. Lily nodded. "To show us what they were protecting." K9-01 descended first, slipping into the darkness with practiced ease. Its paws landed on the wooden steps without a sound. Lily hesitated until Daniel held out his hand. "Together," he said. They climbed down into the underground space, lantern in hand. The air grew cooler, heavier with secrets untouched for years. The room at the bottom was small but sturdy, reinforced with old metal beams. Dust covered the shelves. Cobwebs hung like curtains. But the dogs knew exactly where to go. K9-01 walked straight to a locked metal trunk in the corner. It pawed at the latch, then looked at Daniel, eyes burning with purpose. Daniel knelt down, breath shaking. "I locked this myself," he whispered. "I never thought I'd see it again." Inside the trunk were folders, hundreds of them, along with flash drives, voice recordings, photos, and documents stamped with police seals. Evidence. Every piece tied to the corruption he had tried to expose years ago. Lily picked up one of the files. Inside were names of officers, dates, operations gone wrong, and the dogs' names listed as witnesses in internal reports. "They risked everything," Lily whispered. "Just like you." Daniel swallowed hard. They were targeted because they knew too much. We all were. K9-17 nudged a specific folder toward Lily, insistent. She opened it and froze. Inside was a document titled, Operation Nightfall, Cover-Up Summary. With it, a photo of Daniel holding her as a baby, standing beside the 4 dogs. "They kept this safe," Lily breathed. "For us." Daniel's eyes filled with tears. They came back because they knew the truth couldn't stay buried forever. Above them, footsteps pounded overhead, officers calling Daniel's name. The time to reveal everything had finally come. Daniel emerged from the hatch, holding the metal trunk, dust clinging to his hands like the weight of years finally lifting. Lily climbed out behind him, clutching the crucial folder marked Operation Nightfall. The dogs followed last, forming a silent protective wall around them as blue lights flashed brightly across the barnyard. Rain still dripped from the edges of the roof, but the storm had weakened, its fury fading, just like the fear that had held Daniel prisoner for so long. Sheriff Collins, an older man with silver hair and kind eyes, hurried toward them. "Daniel Harper, are you all right? We received an anonymous tip that your property was under threat." Daniel glanced at the 4 dogs. An anonymous tip or a desperate warning. Either way, it didn't matter now. "Sheriff," Daniel said, voice steadying, "I have something you need to see." He opened the trunk. When Collins looked inside, his face went still. He removed his hat slowly, disbelief widening his eyes as he lifted the top folder. "Dear Lord, Daniel, this is everything we thought was destroyed." "It wasn't destroyed," Daniel said. "I hid it, with the help of my team." His gaze drifted toward the dogs, their bodies still tense but hopeful. My family. The sheriff flipped through document after document. Names of corrupt officers. Financial records. Proof of falsified reports. Photos of stage crime scenes. Detailed logs of threats against Daniel. This could take down half the department leadership, Collins whispered. That's why they hunted the dogs, Daniel replied quietly. They were witnesses. They were smarter than the men who tried to silence them. Lily stepped forward, holding out the photograph of herself as a toddler surrounded by the 4 canines. They protected me then, she said softly. And they came back to protect us now. Collins knelt to Lily's eye level, his expression softening. You're very brave, young lady. These dogs trusted you for a reason. Behind them, deputies led the corrupt officers toward waiting patrol cars, the same men who had stormed the barn earlier. Their weapons were confiscated, wrists bound, faces twisted with shock and fury. This isn't over, the leader spat. You can't prove anything without. Daniel lifted the Operation Nightfall folder. We have everything. The man's expression crumbled. As he was pushed into the back of the patrol vehicle, he snarled at the dogs. You should have died years ago. K9-22 stepped forward with a low growl, but Daniel placed a calming hand on its neck. They survived, Daniel said. And they won. Sheriff Collins closed the trunk and placed a reassuring hand on Daniel's shoulder. We'll reopen the case, clear your name, and make sure justice is finally served. Daniel nodded, emotion thickening his voice. Thank you. The barnyard grew quiet again, this time not from fear, but from relief. Lily knelt beside K9-01, wrapping her arms around its neck. You did it, she whispered. You saved us. K9-01 pressed its forehead gently against hers, eyes soft, breathing calm for the first time in years. For the first time, they were safe. But deep inside all 5 hearts, Daniel's, Lily's, and the dogs, they knew this wasn't the end of their story. It was the beginning of their freedom. The storm clouds finally broke apart, revealing a soft golden sunrise stretching across the horizon. The farm glistened under the new light, wet fields shining like mirrors, the barn roof steaming gently as sunlight warmed its rain-soaked boards. It felt like the world was waking up fresh, clean, reborn. Just like them. Lily sat on the porch steps, wrapped in a blanket, watching the 4 dogs explore the open yard with renewed freedom. They sniffed the earth, stretched their tired muscles, and finally acted like dogs who no longer needed to hide. K9-01 lingered closest to her, lying at her feet like a silent guardian. Daniel stepped out with 2 steaming mugs, hot chocolate for Lily, coffee for himself. He sat beside her, letting the quiet morning wrap around them. You did something brave last night, he said softly. Lily sipped her drink. I wasn't brave. I was scared. That's what makes it brave, Daniel replied, brushing her hair gently. And they sensed it. They watched the dogs for a moment, for silhouettes against the golden field, moving together with a grace only years of loyalty could forge. Daddy, Lily whispered. What happens to them now? Daniel exhaled slowly. That's the part I've been thinking about. Footsteps crunched on the gravel. Sheriff Collins approached, hat in hand, a gentle smile on his weathered face. Behind him 2 deputies carried paperwork, though they stopped a respectful distance away. Morning, Collins greeted. Hope you both managed some rest. A little, Daniel replied. The sheriff knelt beside Lily, his eyes warm. You know, young lady, those dogs trust you more than I've seen any canine trust a handler. Lily blushed. Because they remember me? That, and because you gave them something last night no one else could. Collins smiled softly. You gave them courage. He stood, turning serious. Daniel, about the dogs, by protocol, abandoned canine units belong to the department. But after seeing what they've endured, and considering your record has been cleared, we have options. Lily held her breath. Collins nodded to the deputies. They handed over a stack of papers. Daniel Harper, as of this morning, you are reinstated as the rightful handler of these 4 K9s. And, he looked at Lily. She is registered as their secondary guardian. Lily's eyes widened. Guardian? Me. K9-01 trotted over and pressed its head into her lap, as if celebrating the announcement itself. Lily laughed, tears sparkling in her eyes. Daniel swallowed hard. Sheriff, thank you. They're family, Collins said simply. Families should stay together. He tipped his hat and walked back toward his vehicle, leaving the father and daughter alone with their new, yet old, companions. Lily wrapped her arms around K9-01's neck. Does this mean they live with us now? Daniel crouched beside her, smiling. If that's what they want. As if answering, all 4 dogs gathered around Lily, forming a perfect circle just like the first day they appeared. But this time, the energy was different. Not tense. Not scared. Home. K9-17 nuzzled her shoulder. K9-22 rested its head against her knee. K9-08 gently placed a paw in her lap. Lily giggled. I guess that means yes. Daniel placed a hand on her back. We'll build them a training area. A new kennel. Maybe even let them sleep inside if they want. No, Lily said with a bright grin. They can sleep in my room. Daniel laughed. We'll discuss that part. The sun rose higher, bathing them in warm light. The dogs sat proudly beside their little girl, her guardians, her protectors, her lifelong companions. And as Lily looked into their eyes, she realized something. They didn't just choose her in the barn. They chose her forever.